Hello, my name is Narita, and I'm a student at Liberty University. And at the moment, I'm completing a course called Interpersonal Communication. And I just want to share my final product and enhance some of the skills and abilities that I learned within the course. And I want to share the importance of how being a talker as well as a listener in communication definitely subsides any understanding to further succeed and accomplish anything that needs to be settled in any generalized ability to understand one's feel and one's emotions, as well as how to interact and react to that setting. So with this, I want to start off with a quote from J.C. Peterson, which he's a great author. That this is one of the books of the course that I definitely used throughout, because he entails so much information that it's just very, very, very informative, and it executes what we need to learn to become better counselors, as well as people, individuals, to listen to one another and communicate as well in a more settled fashion, you could say. As we come to understand how important openness to others is, and the difference between thinking and feeling, we can use that information to improve our interactions with each other. Consenting individual reactions that consist of communication strategies and skills that I learned and applied to problems while using specialized and perceived methods supports and encourages putting efforts into their perception. The interpersonal communication tasks and ideologies discussed by Schwartz and Badzinski, which is another author that they were good as well. I learned a lot from them, that I personally discover mainly significant that they wrote is to have the skill of listening attentively. Key knowledge of interpersonal communication and self-identity is one of the key points that I want to talk of also, which, to define interpersonal communication, is not just about administering messages. It is essential regarding being reliable in relationships. The first identity communication that one learns to entail and learn in their self-identity. The way we imagine ourselves to be make the complete difference of how we interact while facing others directly. Self-identity is who we are and explains why we behave and interact accordingly. An individual having awareness of one's self-identity unites the greater expectation on how the world identifies them with social identity. Individuals using social identity will target one by the actions and words shared among one another, leaving a visual impact on how they notice one another. I always told to always represent myself accordingly and precisely, because first impressions are how an individual will always regain the memory of meeting and identifying you as who you are. Overview of communication, connecting and disconnecting, and communication competence is another main goal, key point, which communicating, connecting, and disconnecting result in two different levels of communication. First level is connecting while providing and obtaining knowledge and discussing points of view. The second level of communicating helps us to improve choice, intimacy, and more personal sharings, connecting a degree of feeling and spirit. Between these two levels, individuals' relations excel, making it easier and clearer understanding one another, making the process a more forgiving and honorable intention within the friendship, which Peterson definitely entailed. Communication competence is another way that enhances the ability to connect appropriately and successfully in particular situations, which I read in an article which the author of was Petrocki, and he definitely has some key points which incorporated in knowledge, skill, and motivation. Individuals are more competent communicators when it is known what to communicate using knowledge and how to use the skill to communicate in specific perspectives. And when we pursue using motivation and communication to communicate. The Lord values truth and sees it as faithful. A virtuous communication flows from a desire to love God and the neighbor. Communicative skill without walking the narrow path towards a righteous aspiration can dangerously lead us to exploit others. That's from another author, Cornbell, which he was also, I loved it because he entailed the Lord a lot, and I love speaking of the Lord. Relationships dissolve over the lack of self-awareness, and that is a true factor of living in flesh. Individuals' aspirations should work together in our communication, which was in an article I read, and the author, Studer, he entailed a lot of those aspirations, which were very, very well written. Fundamental goal for making myself more enhanced and what I've learned of myself that I will also pursue every day, basically, is to develop listening benefits. Because it begins towards the understanding of others. This will help with looking through the eyes, the viewpoints, and encounters of the talker. Acknowledging other individuals' behaviors, increasing flexibility, and it helps avoid repeated mistakes. The second fundamental goal that I will pursue is to grip the gift of communication, which equips us to communicate with ourselves, which also known as interpersonal communication. Just as we communicate with God and other neighbors, the best way to walk and talk is using the threefold law of love, which are love God, neighbor, and self. That would always give a positive impact to anybody that definitely needs some uplifting. During the course, I took a behavioral blend assessment, and it entails the 4 temperament model of human behavior. Blend together to determine our unique personality, and it helps to understand why I often feel, think, and act the way I do. And it's usually broken to a pie graph, and it's basically DISC, D-I-S-C, which signifies human behavior. The first activity, task oriented, is D, which is dominating, directing, demanding, determined, decisive, doing. So basically, if your outcome of the assessment shows that you're a D, those are the things that are your strong aspects. Active, people-oriented, which is I. Inspiring, influencing, inducing, impressing, interactive, and interested in people. That's basically your outcome for I, which considers you to be a people-oriented. Aspiring, influencing is basically one of the main ones that are well known to many. Passive, people oriented S. So in the S section, in the S slot, basically is passive. Steady, stable, shy, security oriented, servant, submissive, and specialist. So basically you'll fall under one of those that will consider you to be a passive person. Passive, task oriented. C, which is caution, competent, calculating, compliant, careful, and contemplative. And basically, if you have the C, you're one of those. Well, my results I would like to share and to embrace some, which behavioral blend results, which are expected of me. I came out to be an S. So as an S type, it states that I think people expect me to be more sensitive and submissive. I like blending in with the crowd. I can be very loyal and friendly on an individual basis. I can act like people want me to be more like withdrawn and reserved in public. I often think I need to serve humanity and do what I am told rather than challenge others and do what I need, basically. I'm humble, and I'm humble-spirited and quiet demeanor, which makes me well-liked. I'm not very outward friendly, but I have basically surrounded by a nice circle of trusting friends. People like me because I am not overbearing or confrontational. I don't like to start trouble, I like to handle it in a sense. I think others want me to be pleasing and easygoing. Behavioral blend results, which are me, it states, is as a high S and C, I am more passive than active. I do not often jump into things or express my feelings openly. I am people-oriented, but I prefer one-on-one rather than a large group. I like being behind the scenes rather than up front and causing all attention. My type is the majority, basically. Many people identify with me in that. I like to make a great friend, and I'm definitely a loyal listener, and I'm not very pushy or bossy. I usually seem to know what I'm talking about. Some positive and negatives of it is positives of my assessment is my vision and passion in helping others. I think individuals want me to serve others and comfort individuals with their problems, which usually often happens. I feel that individuals need me, but I often wait for them to ask for my help, which I feel is crucial. Some negatives of the blended results where I often feel inadequate and unworthy when I can't help someone, or when I can't basically try to help them as much as I can. Even though usually I do, it's just sometimes, It's just something inner. I can be very timid and soft-spoken when put in a spot because my concerns towards others and individual emotions is important. As a counselor, being one-on-one rather than in a sizable group makes it a calmer atmosphere. The scenery of, in my opinion, being a talker balances in with multitudes because with others that will respectfully listen and not be critical concerning my words and feelings uttered through communication with the individual listening to me. It is important having presence of a humble spirit and quiet demeanor because it makes me well liked. And basically, it is crucial to have the ears to hear and to be a listener in silence. In Matthew 13:9, who hath ears to hear, let him hear. I love that. I am an individual who desires to help and furthermost of all listen. I comprehend and display empathy concerning the ones who are anguished. Some communication barriers that I must constantly combat when listening to a talker is learning to enhance the flat brain tango method by taking things clearer for them to be coherent by accomplishing both talking and listening to one another will like embrace the change of behavior. It basically handles one's emotions and breakdowns that barrier, which will be constant everyday battle of needing to speak out loud with concern. It's like those inner feelings you just tuck in. This crucial intake is one that must learn to handle their emotions, to both talk and listen coherently. And basically, it's like carrying the cross every day, but once accomplished, you reach that level of conformity, and it's just amazing. Some resources and strategies that will make you become a stronger talker and listener is to use the mind, like basically to produce a solution, trying to be helpful and find yourselves explaining what they should do and give a conclusion of what needs to be done. This can become a problem because individuals, when are distressed, see little or no alternatives, but when they are calm, the possibilities seem infinite. It gives them more of a peace of mind. And problem ownership revolves around the story that is being discussed. I own the problem hits a talker more than basically a talker positions the accountability for handling it. And that's very crucial. And strategies for becoming a stronger listener. It is critical to communication skill for fostering good relationships. It is critical to listen to an individual because it will expand the talker's awareness, being their troubles. Being a listener has its phrase, I don't own the problem, as a talker owns the problem. This does not mean that one doesn't care about the individual and their problems. It guides them into the direction of the obligation in facilitating the individual's emphasis on the own achievement about their solutions. To be successful and how to listen to one must increase one's listening skills. Provide the talker with the encouragement that is needed to become capable to take charge of their life, make their own decisions, to commit themselves will depend on clarity, which will be their wants and their needs. To be a stronger listener, you need to implement a non-argumentative non-judgmental approval of what the talker feels. Recognizing the feelings tolerates frustration levels to diminish. This accomplishment allows a talker to feel understood without loneliness. A listener is empathetic, has established awareness of seeing things differently from the other individual, which becomes learning addition and positive attitude. Good listeners help sharpen one's comprehensive paths to achieve. As a counselor, it is essential how to talk and listen through communication. Learning how to develop listening will always benefit because it initiates the compassionate concerning others. Accomplishing this approach will assist in observing through the eyes, viewpoints, and encounter of the talker. Recognizing other individuals' behaviors raises flexibility and it helps avoid repeated errors, which are always a constant. As a counselor, it is a blessing to grip the gift of communication, which prepares us to communicate with ourselves. The best way to talk and walk is using the threefold. Once again, of love, and they are to love God, the neighbor, and self. The most satisfying way we can embrace communication is with God and our neighbors. And I just want to close with this Bible verse that very is always touching and I feel enhances everything that I've spoken of. It's from Matthew 22:36-40. Master, which is the great commandment in the law? Jesus said unto him, Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy mind. This is the first and great commandment. And the second is like unto it, Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. On these two commandments hang all the law and the prophets. And I just want to thank you so much for listening to my interpersonal communication strategic standards, basically, and what I liked and learned throughout the course. Have a good day. Have a good night, wherever you are. Have a good one. Have a blessed rest of the year. Goodbye.